you just mentioned the fact that there is a way to rid of nuclear waste, get rid of nuclear waste, correct?
Yeah.
What are some of those ways?
So long-term monitored retrievable underground storage are the buzzwords, okay? First of all, you'd like to put it underground when the radioactivity is cooled down enough, about a decade, to keep it isolated and safe. You want to monitor it to make sure that it doesn't do anything you don't want it to do. But you also want to be able to perhaps retrieve it at some point centuries hence, because there's a lot of energy in the waste. We only extract about 5% of the energy in the waste. So we burn it up and then at 5% and then let it cool down for about a decade and put it underground. And it's all perfectly doable, technically fine. Is it absolutely safe? No, nothing is absolutely safe. But the real and projected accident rates dealing with waste, pretty small.
And what happens when you put the waste underground?
It continues to cool. I mean, the waste has been formed from the metal and ceramic that was in the reactor. It's been formed into a glass, and the radioactivity decays on a very predictable time scale.
And where are nuclear reactors usually built? Obviously, do they have to be outside of big cities or?
Yeah, you don't want to build them in cities. You want cooling for them, so you build them on rivers or on the coast because they generate a lot of heat, and you need to cool it. Only about 1/3 of the energy that they produce gets turned into electricity. Most of it is heat, and so you need a big flow of water to keep it cool, whether it's on a river or on the coast.
Does that have any negative adverse effects?
Well, you know, some
people
worry about the heat in the rivers and so on, but it's pretty well spread out. And I think, you know, in certain places, the fish actually like it, the marine life. It's a little warmer, of course, than the surrounding water. No, that has not been a concern.
This is quite fascinating because there is listening to you, and then there are other people that will say that nuclear might not be the best way to go because we don't know how to get rid of waste. I've heard that for a long time, but you just outlined the way to get rid of waste. Why is this not more?
It's there. It's out there. You should also understand the volume of the waste is not enormous, right? I can't quite give you a good physical dimension, but it's not mountains and mountains of this stuff. It's pretty small.
What's relative?
Could fill an aircraft hangar, something like that, for the whole country. Yeah.
And the waste is buried next to the reactor.
No. So we do go a little bit through the fuel cycle.
Yeah.
When you pull the fuel out of the reactor, and you pull some fraction of it out every couple of years, it's pretty radioactive. And so what you do is put it in a swimming pool, as it's called, a cooling pool, for I don't know how many years, 5, 10 years. I don't know the exact number. We could look it up. And then you further put it after it's cooled enough. And that time you put it into a giant, very highly engineered barrel, basically, that sits on the reactor site. And you let that cool for some additional number of years. And then you can take that waste and process it and turn it into glass and stick it underground. So it takes a couple decades to do that, but it can be done.
Wow. If the whole country was powered by nuclear, for example, how many airplane hangars would that?
Yeah, you know, I don't know that number off the top of my head. I'm not going to quote it for you, but it's not very big. Mm-hmm. It's not. We can look it up. I'm not going to look it up right now. It's enough so that you could dig a mine and put the stuff down in the mine, salt cavern. Actually, you could do that. We had the shame of all of this is that the country had studied and engineered a site in Nevada called Yucca Mountain, which is somewhere deep under a mountain. All the geological studies had been done, and we were all ready to go. And then Harry Reid, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time from Nevada, where the site would have been, basically said, no way. And so that has been put on pause, if you like, or indefinite hold, waiting. But, I would say you've got to have nuclear if you want to go emissions free, and people will just eventually come around to that. So, for example, Stuart Brand, who is a prominent environmentalist, he wrote the Whole Earth Catalog back in the 60s and 70s. He's a big supporter of nuclear power now. Bill Gates, who wrote the book, big supporter of nuclear power to the extent that he's investing in developing nuclear technologies. So I think people who look at this with the engineer's eye will realize you're going to have to do fission if you want to go to zero emissions.